So many global issues which have to do with our environment directly are connected to plants. And what we do to plants, what we do to landscapes, what we do ecologically and to ecosystems. And so we're going to go over some of those today. So the impacts of humans on plant communities at the global level are very apparent. Many of them are global in scope, so they affect. Actually, most of them are more global than they are personal, right? So, like in your everyday life, you don't probably think about the effect of the use of plants, but they have more of a negative impact in global processes than they do in personal, right? So climate changes, stratospheric ozone depletion, loss of biodiversity, these are examples which are traced to human activities which have a global effect. So we'll talk about some of these. Global warming, or also known as global climate change, have been most of the evidence, all of the evidence points to human activities being the cause of global climate change. Some of that evidence includes the shrinking of glaciers and polar ice caps, the melting of permafrost in our biomes, such as the tundra and taiga, the rising of sea levels, the experimental evidence showing the greenhouse effect, where certain gases will cause the radiation of the sun and the heat of the sun to reflect back down onto the sun rather than escaping into the atmosphere. And those include gases such as carbon dioxide and methane, which are increasing in the atmosphere. There's also the effects of erosion. So this is not one that necessarily is thought of a lot of, but when you see it rain, you'll often see that the rain water or runoff water is filled with dirt. And one of the reasons that is because we remove a lot of the plants from the soil, which would normally help to capture and soak up that water. And we have a lot of impermeable surfaces such as concrete. So when you take out the plants, you put in concrete, or you put in fields, that reduces your ability to slow that water and cause it to go in the soil, and instead it runs off and creates these erosion. It's most significant, however, to agriculture productivity, and it removes that topsoil, which is very important for the growth of our agriculture. So it takes away organic matter, such as leaves and dead things that are decomposing, which normally would stay put, but you have this increase in runoff, so it takes it away. Again, the ability to soak up water is lost, and it also carries pollutants into our waterways, such as fertilizers and pesticides. So when lands are overgrazed, or land is cleared, which was normally forest, or again impermeable surfaces such as roads, all of these increase the amount of erosion that occurs, decreases the amount of soil, decreases the stability of ecosystems. Another problem is the overuse of water. So even in the United States, the use of water is not efficient. We generally just flood our fields and our agricultural fields when they don't necessarily need to be flooded. So the overuse of water, a lot of which comes from aquifers. So some of it, of course, comes from runoff from lakes and streams and dams and rivers, but a lot of it is also pumped out of the ground from aquifers, which are normal water that has percolated there through the soil. Water is pumped for irrigation, industry, and just a small percentage of it is used actually for personal use in homes. And the demand for water is growing. This can cause overuse of these aquifers can cause, if you pull too much of this water out near the ocean, instead of this all being fresh water flowing into the ocean, you can have salt water backing up into the aquifer, and that's going to cause salt water to go into these wells. Aquifers this is showing in Mexico, those that are overexploited, those that have this problem of saline intrusion, and then also the soil, which is increased in salinization because of that backup of saltwater intrusion. So this is a problem which causes the ability of plants to not be able to grow in their, plants need those aquifers to stay hydrated. Biodiversity is something that is affected, of course, when we clear cut, when we reduce the natural ecosystem to, again, agriculture or other things such as grazing. So here's an example of what looks like a normal healthy forest, but this is actually a pine tree stand. So normally this would be a hardwood forest, but this pine tree stand is growing for the production of lumber. And it's not very diverse. It just has pine trees there. Extinction rates have accelerated because of a lot of human activities. And biodiversity is necessary for a number of things, but one of them is exemplified by a disease that affected corn throughout the United States. It was wiping out, I can't remember exactly what the corn disease was called, but it was wiping out crops all over the United States. And we were able to go back to the original wild relative of corn and find a resistant strain and breed that back into our corn varieties for agricultural use. But had we caused the original corn to go extinct through whatever land use we have, then that would not have been available. So biodiversity is important for the variation in genes, which can be used for disease resistance and other things. Loss of biodiversity also reduces the efficiency, so you lose more nutrients, you lose soil, you lose the ability to come back from disturbances. So a lot of these things, so those are worldwide problems. You can see a lot more things at the regional level, so looking at smaller portions of area, but still bigger than the individual, or larger than the individual. One of these is acid deposition or acid rain. What happens is when you burn fossil fuels, it releases sulfur compounds and nitrogen compounds into the air, which react with the sun to create acidic compounds, which are then introduced into waterways through rain. And specifically, some organisms are specifically affected by this acid rain. It causes mycorrhizal fungi to die, it causes trees to die, alters the fertility of the soil, also causes large amounts of nitrogen to accumulate in waterways, which will then cause eutrophication and increases soil fertility, so that you now have competitive colonizing species taking over these areas. So this was evident in the northeastern United States by the washing away of structures. So this is the same stone statue over a period of 30 years in which acid rain was very abundant. You can see it's causing the minerals from this from the stone statue to leach, to decompose, not decompose, but to be dissolved, and all that goes into the water. Same thing happens to the soil and to the substrate, which also makes then phosphorus and other minerals less available for plants because it's being washed away into the soil or into the water. Now, most of this because of stricter emissions controls, most of this has been controlled for in the northeastern United States. However, it is still a problem in some areas. Another problem, which of course affects a lot of plants, is water pollution or water contamination. Toxic waste, runoff from polluted land, which we mentioned, pesticide spraying, all of that is going to eventually come into waterways and affect the plants and animals which live in them. It can also taint water supplies, and we don't know the full effect of what these pesticides and fertilizers and other things can do to our water supply. But they do definitely affect the plants and animals which are distributed by these polluted waters. Wetlands are very important for the recycling of nutrients and for the filtering out of a lot of these pollutants. And so they're a very natural way to decrease the amount of pollutants and to kind of clean waterways. A lot of wetlands, however, are being drained and for agricultural use and for the use of the water. But wetlands are very important for ecological restoration. All right, foreign species, invasive species coming and dominating landscapes. These are often aggressive, weedy species that reproduce quickly, crowd out other organisms. They generally don't have natural pests or herbivores or other things to control them or eat them, or maybe better adapted to the environment than the other species. And they often have phenotypic plasticity, so they can grow not based on their genes, but different variants within their genes allow them to grow better. And so 2 examples of this are kudzu, which is found in the southeast United States, and out west you have cheatgrass, which grows very abundantly and is out competing other species. You can see this whole forest here is covered in kudzu, which is going to cause all these plants to die as it outcompetes them for nutrients. So finally, what's the process then for combating a lot of these effects? Are this area of science called restoration ecology, which assumes that much of the damaged ecosystems and plants and areas can be remitigated to be restored to somewhat a resemblance of their natural state. A lot of this applies successional concepts, right? So you're going to basically, humans have created a disturbed landscape, and to restore the natural ecosystem, you have to, kind of boost the successional process. And so this is a quote from E.O. Wilson, which is a prominent biologist of our time, who said that restoration ecology is the means to end the great extinction spasm. The next century will, I believe, be the era of restoration and ecology. Hopefully, he's correct. So restoration ecology, again, restores the dynamics of the ecosystem, oftentimes restoring the flow of nutrients, including waterways or nitrogen or other things. So where you once had a channel, which may have been an irrigation ditch for an agricultural farm, this creates erosion and prevents the natural flow of water to the plants and animals around it. You would then, to restore this area, restore the winding nature of the creek or river. This allows a lot more variety of organisms to be able to receive the water they need. They may also reestablish ecosystem services such as buffer zones. So buffer zone is an area of forest kind of in between a waterway or in between a sensitive area and an agriculture area. A lot of things could be solved as far as pollution if you just had wetlands or forests or some sort of patch which would allow to absorb and purify a lot of the water and pollutants before they reach the waterways. And then in some instances you may have to reclaim lands and repurpose them into something else where restoration is not feasible. And this also allows for the production of parks or maybe other important land uses in our society, which can have a benefit. So, like generally after a mine, the land is so destroyed that area may not be able to be restored to its natural state, but you may reclaim it and put it into a park or some other type of land use. All right, that's it.